Hi there, today we're going to discuss solving two-step inequalities. What will we learn today? We're going to learn how to solve two-step inequalities. Solve a two-step inequality. A two-step inequality is an inequality that contains two operations. To solve a two-step inequality, use inverse operations to undo each operation in reverse order of the order of operations. How to solve two-step inequalities. Step 1. Undo the addition or subtraction of the constants, which is basically the numbers. Step 2. Undo the multiplication or division. Remember, if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you're going to have to switch the signs. And step 3, as always, check your solution. Here's example number 1. We have 3x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 16. So our first step is to undo the addition or subtraction of our constants. So our variable x is multiplied by 3 and added by 4. We're going to undo this plus 4. So how we do that is we're going to subtract 4 from both sides of the inequality. And just notice that I brought down my inequality to make sure that I'm doing the same operation to the left and the right. So our plus 4 minus 4 cancels out to 0. So I'm left with 3x is greater than or equal to 16 minus 4 is 12. At this point now our variable x is being multiplied by 3. So to undo our multiplying by 3, we're going to divide by 3 on both sides of the inequality. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. So we're left with x is greater than or equal to 4. So this is our solution, and feel free to check it before moving on. Our next step is to graph our solution. So we know that because it's greater than or equal to, the point 4 is going to be included in the graph. So we're going to have a closed circle, and it's greater than, so we're going to be moving to the right. Okay, so all of these numbers can be included in the solution. Example number 2, 5 plus 4x is less than 33. So here we want to start off by adding or subtracting our constants. So our constant, which is basically our numbers, is 5. Okay, so how do we get rid of a positive 5? We're going to subtract 5 on both sides of the inequality. Again, I brought down my sign, so I made sure I did the minus 5 on the left and the right. Okay, so my 5 minus 5 is 0, so I'm left with 4x, positive 4x, is less than 33 minus 5 is 28. Okay, so now we have our variable x, it's being multiplied by 4. So to undo the multiply by 4, we're going to divide by 4 on both sides of the inequality. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so I'm left with x on the left, and then is less than 7. So this is my solution, and in order to graph it, we have to decide if it's an open circle or closed circle. This is going to be an open circle because it does not include 7. So I'm going to have an open circle on 7. Ooh, that doesn't look very open. Open circle on 7, and it's less than 7, so it's going to the left. Okay, so all of these numbers all the way to the end of the number line or further is going to be included in the solution. So if you plugged in any of these numbers into the solution, the equation or the inequality, it's going to come out true. Here's another example. 7 minus 2x is greater than 11. Okay, so again, we're going to take a look at what are our constants on the same side as the variable. And that is 7. So how do I get rid or undo a positive 7? We're going to subtract 7 on both sides of the inequality. Again, bringing down the sign so that I know I did it to the left and to the right. Okay, so 7 minus 7 makes 0. So what I'm left with is a negative 2n. Don't forget your signs. They're very, very important. So negative 2x, and then 11 minus 7 is 4. Okay, so now our variable x is being multiplied by negative 2. So I'm going to divide by negative 2 on both sides of the equations. okay, or the inequality. So negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1, so I'm going to say x. And since I divided by a negative number, I have to switch my sign. So it's no longer greater than, it's going to be less than. And then 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. Okay, now I'm going to I have to plot on negative 2. I have to decide if it's going to be open circle or closed circle. Since it's just less than, that means negative 2 is not included in the solution, so it's going to be an open circle, and it's going to be less than, so it's all the numbers to the left. Okay, so all these numbers here are solutions into this inequality. Example 4, x divided by 2 minus 5 is less than negative 8. All right, so our variable x is being divided by 2 and then subtracted by 5. So our first job is to get rid of our constants, which is a minus 5 right here. So the opposite of minus 5 is to add 5 on both sides of the inequality. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, bringing down the sign so I know if I did the plus 5 on both sides of the equation. So this cancels to 0. So I'm left with x over 2, or x divided by 2, is less than negative 3. All right, so now we have our x being divided by 2. So the inverse would be to multiply by 2 on both sides of the equation, or inequality, I'm sorry. So 2 divided by 2 cancels out to 1. So we're saying x is less than negative 6. Again, I didn't have to switch my sign because I multiplied by a positive number. Okay, so now we have x is less than negative 6. So we're going to plot on negative 6 because it is just less than. It's not included in the solution. Open circle, and less than is to the left. So this is my solution graph. Here's one more involving division. So we have x divided by 4 plus 3 is greater than or equal to 7. So our job is to first undo the addition or subtraction of the constants. So to undo this plus 3, I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides of the inequality. Okay, so plus 3 minus 3 cancels out to 0. So I'm now left with x divided by 4 is greater than or equal to 4. Now we're going to say, well, x is being divided by 4, so the inverse would be to multiply by 4 on both sides of the equation. Notice I showed my multiplication using parentheses. Okay, so the 4 divided by 4 cancels out to 1, so x is going to be greater than or equal to 16. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph this. So I just have to make sure, if you have a blank number line, that 16 is on here. And then make sure you just kind of plot some numbers to the right and plot some numbers to the left. You don't have to get all fancy. You can go by singles if it's a blank number line. So we have to decide if it's going to be an open circle or a closed. Because this is also equal to, that means that it is going to include 16, so it's going to be a closed dot, and then greater than is going to the right. And so all these numbers are going to be included in the solution. Okay, so now we're going to get into some word problems and some real-life applications. Here's an example. Halfway through the bowling league season, Stuart has 34 strikes. He averages 2 strikes per game. Write and solve an inequality to find how many more games it will take for Stuart to have at least 61 strikes, the league record. So interpret the solution. So this is one of those 3-part problems, again, where you're going to have to write the inequality, you're going to have to solve the inequality, and then you're going to have to kind of tell me what the answer actually means. So for here, we have 34 plus 2 times the number of games, because it's 2 strikes per game, is at least 61. Okay, so we're going to have to convert all these words into math symbols. So we have 34 plus 2 times the number of games, so I'll say 2g, I'm going to use g as the variable for games, is at least means greater than or equal to 61. Now when we say is at least, it means that 61 is the least number that it can be, and it can be many more, like 62, 63, 64, and so forth. Okay, so this is part A. This is my inequality. Okay, so now let's go ahead and start solving the inequality. And our first step again is to undo the addition or subtraction of the constant. So our constant is 34. So to undo or get rid of the 34, I'm going to subtract 34 from both sides of the equation or the inequality. I keep doing that. Sorry, guys. All right, so 34 minus 34, that equals 0. So I'm left with 2 times the number of games is supposed to be greater than or equal to 27. Okay, so now we're going to have to undo the multiplication. So I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides of the equation. 2 divided by 2 gives us 1. So G is actually greater than or equal to 13.5, which is kind of weird. So 13.5 games, and it's kind of weird because you can't say, oh, after 13 and a half games, you kind of quit. But when they ask us to interpret the solution, we have to say, okay, what did we get and what does it mean? Well, she has to, not she, Stuart should play 14 more games to get 61 strikes. And the reason why I'm going to say 14 more is because at 13, it's not enough. And then at 13 and a half, you can't stop, midway through a game. You have to complete the 14. Okay, and here's my last example. We're talking about Tim has already earned $40 mowing lawns. He earns $10 per lawn. Write and solve an inequality to determine how many more lawns he will have to mow for at least $95 for a new lawnmower. So here we have $40 plus 10 times the number of lawns is at least $95. So we're going to start off with 40 plus $10 times the number of lawns. I'm going to say L as my variable. And then when I say is at least, it means the smallest amount is 95, and you can actually go greater than that, 95. Okay, so this is my first part. This is my inequality. So now let's start solving our inequality. So we have 40 plus 10 times the number of lawns is greater than or equal to 95. Okay, so let's start by undoing the addition and subtraction of our constant. So to get rid of our 40 here, we're going to subtract 40 from both sides. Okay, so 10L is going to be greater than or equal to $55. Okay, now to undo our multiplication of L, we're going to divide by 10 on both sides. Okay, so 10 divided by 10 is 1. So L is going to equal 5.5. Okay, that's the solution we got. I'm sorry, not equal to, but greater than or equal to 5.5. Okay, so that's my solution. But we have to definitely say, what does it actually mean? Well, we can't say, well, we can say that Tim must mow. Okay, now we can't say 5.5 lawns, so you can't kind of mow half a lawn and say, hey, I'm done. So you're going to have to mow at least 6 lawns in order to make $95. Okay? All right, so today we solved two-step inequalities. I hope that video was helpful. Thank you. Bye.